Tom, that looks like your first oyster right there.
That one right there, that particular one?
And you just slurp it down? Yeah.
Oh, really good.
I used to cook with Roy all the time when he was training me, and then the movie came out and it all ended.
It's like being dumb.
It really was. It was like, when are we cooking again?
Right now, that's when.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, wherever you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and most importantly, that was the new Netflix show based, like a loose sequel to the Chef, I guess?
It's Jon Favreau, who was the star of Chef, and Roy Choi, who was the producer and did all the food for Chef.
So, okay, so Chef was, number one, a delightful film. If nobody's seen it, everybody, you should go watch Chef. I heard a rumor that it was sort of a rejection, and it was sort of an expression of the frustration that Jon Favreau had after the critically mixed reviews of Iron Man 2 and the compromise that went into it. And I loved Chef quite a bit. And one of the things I was impressed with was how much he clearly seemed to know about cooking food and that. However, my father-in-law, who works in the food industry, was not impressed with the delicate nature. He's like, you're gonna cut it like that, are you? Like you care. But regardless, I love the movie and I love the conceit that they take it into the real world. But most importantly, I love that our guest is Jennie Josephson joining us. How are you doing, Jennie?
I'm going to lie and say fantastic.
Wait.
That's the American way.
That's right.
Why on earth would you not be fantastic?
The shortest version is I do a podcast called Very Old Dad, and it's happening to me right now, really very.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, you're in the middle of some stuff.
I'm in the middle of like stuff that everybody goes through at some point. If they have parents that are still with us, and mine is very much still with me, just turned 80, and all his parts are falling apart. And so I'm here in New York. I'm gathering recordings for Very Old Dad podcast coming out in the future. But if you look at me, I look like the daughter of a person who needs a lot of doctor's appointments and also help standing up at all times.
If I were in your position, all I would want to do is make the whole world go away for 1 hour and just talk about watching what we want, when we want, on whatever damn device we please.
Accurate.
We are here for you, Jennie, to do that, to provide that service. So let's get right into the primary target. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of an explainer, so be patient with me here. Comcast and Disney reached a deal on Hulu last week, which I am hearing a lot of people confused about. So we'll try to dispel some of that confusion. If you were like, wait, didn't Disney already get most of Hulu when they bought Fox? Yes. Disney already owned 2/3 of the service after it acquired Fox, but the operating agreement gave Comcast a say in major decisions. The CEO of Hulu reported to the Hulu board. It did not report to Fox or Disney. So this new deal will give Disney full control of Hulu's future as of now. So the CEO of Hulu now reports to a senior VP at Disney. Comcast will remain an owner. That part isn't changing. I think that's what confuses people. They're like, wait, I thought Disney bought control already, but now they're buying it. No. Disney changed the rules in order to be able to have full control without having to ask Comcast as a 1/3 owner for permission on major decisions. Comcast, in return, will get the right to sell the service within the next 3 to 5 years at a fixed price. So if Hulu stock goes up, they get more money, but if it goes down, they're guaranteed a minimum price. Lots of other aspects to this deal. NBC content will not disappear from Hulu. A lot of people are like, oh, well, now that Disney bought out Comcast. They didn't buy out Comcast. And even when they do, NBC content stays on Hulu for 3 to 5 years. NBC channels carried on Hulu Live get a raise in carriage fees. So that's another little kick over to Comcast for doing this deal. NBC content on Hulu may also run on NBC's streaming service when NBC launches it next year. So it's not NBC taking all their content and putting it on the streaming service. They're saying, you can keep it on Hulu. That's great. We'll still get our money from that, but we also get the right to put it on our own service. The deal for Fox Corporation, which is the part of Fox not owned by Disney. I know this gets really confusing, but there's that leftover part of Fox that Disney didn't buy. That also is sticking around. So all the stuff that Fox, the broadcast channel, owns is staying on Hulu. The short version of this is the stuff that's on Hulu right now is going to stay there for a while. The price of Disney's Disney Plus, $7 a month, has apparently prompted NBC to decide to lower the price of its NBC streaming service. It had been thought it would be about $12 a month next year. It sounds like it'll be more around $10 a month, so still more expensive. NBC streaming service will not have live channels or current season episodes. So another reason why current season episodes of NBC shows might stay on Hulu. Old seasons would come to the NBC streaming service. And Variety reports that the employees at Hulu are, quote, bullish on full control by Disney, part of because they now have the relief of having just one owner to answer to. They can get straight answers on stuff one way or another. A couple other things here. FX is definitely producing content for Hulu. We've known that, but Bob Iger reassured that, yes, FX is already underway making original content for Hulu. Noted that the Simpsons World website will shut down November 12th because the Simpsons content is all going to show up on Disney+. And reiterated that BAMTech, which Disney owns a controlling stake in, which is the backbone for Hulu streaming, will continue to be the backbone of Hulu streaming, along with HBO Now, PlayStation View, MLB, Advanced Media, all that sort of thing. So really, the short of this is Disney and Comcast made a complex arrangement that allows Comcast to still make money off Hulu. Disney gets control of what happens on Hulu, and the content from NBC and Fox is sticking around for the time being.
So, man, forgive me. All I could do is reduce everything to dumb metaphors. But if I'm understanding it correctly, the big question that we had was whether or not Disney was going to move for full control or full ownership of Hulu, which we are not seeing. But what we are seeing is them fully taking the reins. They are clearly stepping up and announcing, "I'm the captain now," right? And everybody thrilled to have only one captain. Meanwhile, Comcast is saying, you know what, we're going to treat this not as a vessel that we want to decide where it goes, but instead we're going to treat this like, I don't know, an investment portfolio or an investment property. This just happens to be where a lot of our money and equity happens to be located, and we happen to have some sweetheart deals as far as being able to get our content onto it. Good job, Captain Disney. Continue to marvel forth. And so in the meantime, the questions are, it's tempting to feel like Simpsons World shutting down would be a bad thing. But in the case where the captain of the ship is going to be a good steward of it, and of course, Disney has a fantastic track record of being good stewards of properties that they take over. I don't think Simpsons fans have much to worry about, so I don't know that I would shed too many tears about the loss of Simpsons World. What's left on the big questions, Tom, as far as unresolved stuff here?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I hear people speculating on is like, oh, so Comcast sold it off, and it's strangely more complicated than that. And I like your captain analogy. Comcast, like, we're treating this as an investment property. We guaranteed we'll get our investment back plus a return. And it might be worth more in a few years, but we're not going to trash it, right? And also the other question is, so Hulu's just going to become all the Disney stuff, right? And it's like, well, no, a lot of the Disney stuff's going to be on Disney Plus, and it sounds like the NBC and Fox stuff that has been populating it for years will stay there. They also still have deals with CBS for some past seasons here and there. CBS keeps a lot of its stuff for all access, but they've got a few things over there. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like what Disney has accomplished here is we get to run it without having to ask Comcast for things, but we also don't lose the content that is bringing people in while we try to what Netflix is doing, which is build up original content that is compelling on its own. And
before I toss everything over to Jenny here, I do want to remind longtime listeners, we had previously speculated that Disney Plus carved out a fairly family-friendly specific niche on there, everything in the spectrum from the G-rated Disney stuff up through, the Marvel Universe and National Geographic. But there's sort of this hard line on the other side. Like, there's no way something like FX's Legion was ever going to show up on Disney Plus. And we were speculating that their ownership and controllership of Hulu would be a welcome home for all of the more adult-oriented materials, along with, of course, all of the originals and everything from the Comcast archives. So, Jenny, do you have a strong visceral reaction one way or the other? Like does this? I don't know what there is to be upset about or worried about, but maybe you can come up with something.
Okay, maybe I blacked out during this point, but isn't Disney launching their own streaming channel for which everybody in Hollywood is taking endless meetings to try to get shows on?
Correct, but there's a lot of content that will never make it on there. Specifically, I don't know if you've seen Legion, but it is a very adult-oriented. Or think about the FX property, The Shield, or any of the cutting-edge Fox stuff. Right, exactly.
Brand distinguishing saves them from murdering Hulu, is what you're saying. So the differentiation of brand benefits us more than Disney owning these two competing streaming properties hurts us.
So if I understand it correctly, and Tom can act as judge on this, Disney Plus is fairly homogenous in that everything in there is going to be Disney material, right? And there is more Disney material that is over the line of appropriateness. Let's say the age of 15, 16, 17 or whatever, that will tend to live in Hulu, which is now something that Disney controls but does not fully own on its own, but doesn't have to fully own, because by not fully owning it, they also get to invite a bunch of other partners and bring in Hulu originals like The Handmaid's Tale and also the complete Simpsons back catalog and stuff that's not technically under the Disney umbrella. Is that right so far, Tom?
Approved.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Motion adjourned.
So then my only other question as a former Yahoo employee is, which senior vice presidents have become redundant, and how large will their severance packages be? That's it. That's my last question.
Okay, my only question is, when will the new revival of the UK office about redundancy come back, about which presidents are redundant at this point, and how funny will it be? That's what we don't know, and that's part of the reason that we keep on covering this story is because, this was an extremely complicated deal that had so many moving parts. We've seen franchises split into pieces, and in a world where we've seen Spider-Man rejoin the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're getting ready to see more and more of the mutant stuff show up, I'm sure. It seems like that this is nothing but good news all around, especially if what we're really reporting on is the fact that the folks who are working at Hulu are the ones excited about Disney taking the reins, which again, no ownership has changed, no equity has changed, nothing has been bought or sold, but basically they're stepping forward and saying, we're going to offer guidance and take us somewhere. And in general, the folks at Hulu seem to be pretty thrilled about that.
All right.
Yeah. I've been, ever since Disney decided that they were ever since it looked like Disney was definitely going to get the majority of Fox here, I have assumed that this would be their play. That they would come up with it because they'd already been talking about a Disney streaming service, and it made sense to put the family-friendly stuff because you're going to brand it Disney, and then Hulu would be the appropriate place for everything else. And Hulu had enough of a sort of a nice rolling start that with the Disney juice behind it, it can compete with Netflix. One of the things that Disney gets out of this is the ability to roll Hulu out internationally more aggressively than it has before. It's in Japan in a co-brand agreement. I don't know how Disney's going to handle that, but they really haven't been successful in trying to get it going other places. Well, now Disney, which is a worldwide company, can do that. One of the breaks on that before was having to get Comcast to sign off on those sorts of things. Now they can just go do it. And so I think you start to see Hulu compete with Netflix on a global scale, which is one of the things that's helped Netflix to take off, is opening in 120 countries.
Look, I'm sorry, Tom, but all of this sounds very, very complicated. You know what's not complicated?
Tell me something that's not complicated.
Giving us $1. Like, hey, you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden you turn around the corner. Who's that? Oh, my God, it's Tom Merritt and Brian Brushwood. Those two guys who talk about how to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please. And they look at you with humble, begging eyes. And Tom says, I need to write another book. And Brian says, it's been a while since my last magic show. And then both of us hand our hands out, and we say, will you give us $1? And then we see the reflection in your eyes. We see the panic as you think, oh my God, I don't have $2 on me. And we're like, oh, no. Not $1 each, just 50 cents each. I mean, $1 to split between us. And then
like 45 cents and then a dime for Bryce.
Yeah, we see the furrow in your brow and the quizzical notion that makes you think like, I don't know. I mean, what have you done for me lately? And we're like, we will provide every single week valuable news for you to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please. And we'll create your very own RSS feed where we'll include a second show called Spoilerin Time where we talk about all the amazing content that we're watching. And I said, and we'll even have a secret after talk segment that only you get to listen to. And all it's going to take is $1. And then you hand the $1 over. And then as both of our fingers grab the end of the $1, we say, but there's a catch. I mean, this is $1 per episode. Is that okay? And we feel the gentle tug away. We feel the hesitation in your hands, but we say, you'll also be giving Bryce a job. And at that point, we feel you let go of the $1.
For
and we
$1.
thank you for heading on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers, where you can get the best ways to, I already said it a bunch of times. Cordkillers, it's a great show. You're listening to it right now. Give us $1. That's not much to ask.
You can start spending the reward of that right now by going and talking to someone about the Comcast Disney Hulu situation in a smart way, because now you understand it and they don't. So go do that. And we'll tell you how to watch.
Tom, you're so right. I should have been, you sell features, not benefits. I was selling benefits. You're selling the feature. The benefit is that we tell you. The feature is that we tell you. The benefit is that you get to be smarter than everybody else. That's worth $1.
Easily. All right, let's make you smarter in how to watch.
Yep.
Jenny, you've got to be laughing because I'm getting dangerously close to saying the name of a show you developed. New series from CW in 2019 and 2020 will no longer automatically go to Netflix. The deal is changing. So the existing deal right now is CW's show is done. 8 days after the season is over, it shows up on Netflix. That's going to stay for the shows that were already part of that deal. Riverdale, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, all that stuff will continue to go to Netflix 8 days after the season is over. But new series coming to the CW starting this fall are going to be up for anybody. Netflix can get them if they want. But they'll have to bid with other people. So Batwoman, Nancy Drew, and the Riverdale spinoff Katie Keene are currently being shopped for streaming deals individually by their respective studios. And that means they could go to Netflix, but also some of the studios make this stuff. So like, say Warner is making this for the CW. Oh, Warner might win the bid to put it on the Warner Media streaming service. In fact, it likely will. Sources tell Deadline Batwoman is probably headed to the Warner Media streaming service. But this is going to cause a little consternation and confusion for people who are like, oh, I know that I can either watch it on the CW app while it's airing or wait for the season to be over and go watch it on Netflix. And now it's not going to be that simple.
So, Jenny, I would have thought this would have been a huge deal 2 years ago, but I feel like we're in the era of you go to Netflix and the thing isn't there, and then you go to Hulu and see if it's there instead. Or then you go to, I don't know, maybe Crackle or whatever, or you go to justwatch.com. My gut tells me that as Netflix wants to be the HBO of the streaming space, that this is probably a fine thing for them to have happen.
Yeah, and I think that the next phase, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this so much, is we're going to stop talking so much about the streaming apps themselves, and we're really going to start focusing on these platforms. Because even now, like, I don't go search within the apps anymore because now there's so many apps and I have them, and it turns out like probably by the end of this year I'll be paying $6,000 for all the TV and all the services that I watch, just because now I'm duplicating my cable and my cord killing. But I think that the searchability and figuring out a really good way on Roku, on Apple TV, on all of these platforms of a way for me to just find the thing is going to become increasingly important. And that opens up opportunities for the platforms to differentiate themselves. So to me, it's like that story is almost not about the apps and who gets the rights. It's about how we find it.
Yeah, I that is going to be the battleground, right? Because you are seeing the production companies saying with the CW deal, hey, lots of people will pay us for these things because there's so many of these streaming services, and we're going to make hay while the sun shines and sell top dollar, which means you'll have multiple streaming services. We need to get over the idea that we have to have all of them or it will cost us $6,000, right, to get everything. And we need something to tell us where the stuff we really want to watch is. That's where Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV can help us if the streaming services are willing to play in that. As we've seen, Netflix isn't. Netflix doesn't want Apple TV to take that relationship away. Netflix wants to be the interface, but that's harder and harder for it to justify as more and more content can be found in other places.
Do you have a TV guide for streaming yet? Where I could just pick up
watch.
a book?
Just watch is the thing you do. Go there and just like it'll make recommendations, but also you can just type in a name and it'll tell you where to find it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our current. If you know what you want to see and you just want to know where to find it, as a matter of fact, spoiler alert for our upcoming segment, but that's where recently I found out where Jaws happened to be, and and Jaws it says, by the way, you have it for free because you have Stars. It's like, didn't even know that. Let me just cruise on over to Stars.
Yeah, you're gonna need a bigger subscription. Well, in that case, you didn't because you already had Stars, so that's good. Yeah, so I think we're going to see more of this sort of thing where we're starting to see the shakeout into a stable version of the future. We just have way more streaming services out there than we can support. So the next step will be which is going to win, which of the streaming services are going to survive, and which ones will end up backing off and becoming providers of content to the other streaming services.
Quick side note, Thrumwald in the chat brings up a very good point. He says Google needs to step up their game for searching what you can watch where. Why has Google not totally taken over whatever that niche is that Just Watch? Because before that it was canistream.it, and then they stopped being good at it, and right now it's Just Watch. But Google has the technology. They can make this happen. They could dominate the thing where all you do is type the things and it just says, by the way, you can watch it here, 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 or here.
That goes back to what Jenny said, right? Everybody wants to be the platform, Google included. They want you to use Android TV to do that. Or if you're in search, just go watch things on YouTube TV and YouTube. That's the place. So I think that might be slowing down the development of what would otherwise be a more impartial way to just figure out where everything is.
Bryce just found what looks like they're dipping a toe in those waters right now.
Yeah,
so
they've had a feature like this. It'll show you prices and subscription services. Yeah.
How'd you find that?
I just typed in Riverdale into Google and it said available on. So you can see the CW and it's on Netflix. And
they're just not making a big deal out of it, but it's there.
It's not a separate like search tool, which is what Google wants.
Yeah, that's usually the way. For sure. All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
So, Rick and Morty got a tease. It's coming in November. That's really all there is in the tease, other than Rick and Morty stumbling around telling you that it's coming in November.
Well, the significant part to me about this trailer was almost nothing spoken explicitly, but both of them clearly worried about upsetting fans by whatever it is they're about to say, which is a little wink to the fact that fans of Rick and Morty can be a little bit rabid and get a little bit upset about when and where the stuff is going to premiere. I mean, it's great that it's coming out in November. I take them at their word, but I ended up watching it and just thinking like, man, it's got to be really rough to be working on Rick and Morty and just have the whole world constantly asking you when the new season's going to come out.
Yeah, it's coming out in November. They didn't give us a date.
Oh my
for
God!
season 4.
Oh, you're not going to be that guy, are you? This look at their animated faces as they're so nervous. Play just a snippet of this and see how nervous they're portraying. That
I just said they didn't give us a date because I know people are waiting. Like, Tom, you keep saying November, but November what? I just, they didn't say.
Oh, you're killing me.
Everybody relax.
Okay,
it's gonna be okay. It's coming in November. Just don't know exactly when in November.
I don't watch Rick and Morty, and I'm afraid to say it, but I think it's important to say that I don't watch Rick and Morty, even though I acknowledge its sheer genius. It's genius. Matt watches it all the time. My husband, Matt Flanagan, comedy writer, loves it so much. But to me, I find it like a little too yelly. But I do really, really appreciate everything that they do with that show and how far that they have pushed.
Josephson, where did you go, and why is my wife Bonnie here saying the exact things that Bonnie says?
We don't like old men shouting at us.
I could have sworn Eileen had showed up and interjected herself in this conversation.
I'm Morty. I'm very loud. I never stop talking. I'm constantly panicking, and I sound just like Jenny's dad.
You're not wrong, but it is one of those things. South Park is kind of in the same clubhouse where it's like it's deeply unpleasant for most adult females that I know to hear the tone of voice and all that stuff, and yet none of them deny the brilliance and incisiveness of the comedy and the satire that come along with it.
Yeah, but on many things, I am right there with the crowd on the cutting edge. But on this one, I'm just like Allison in the other room with the magazines. I pass.
How about this Wednesday, May 22nd? Are you going to tune in for the live All in the Family and Jeffersons with Jamie Foxx and Woody Harrelson and Marissa Tomei? This just keeps sounding better and better. Jimmy Kimmel has a kind of it's not really a teaser trailer. It's him talking about having the idea, calling Norman Lear, getting Woody Harrelson on board and Jamie Foxx on board, and just talking about how they think, and we'll see on Wednesday, but they think that these episodes feel kind of timeless right now.
Yeah. Words can't describe the impact of Norman Lear on television, and this show will certainly try. And I think it's very good of them to do this now while he's only 175 years old. But like, Norman Lear is
also
responsible for some of the most radical television that has ever been on television, and especially the Jeffersons, especially All in the Family. Like it is truly a spectacular legacy. I'm so excited for this. I get like a little emotional just thinking about these shows. Like these are the shows that are the DNA of what made us love television of a certain generation.
Jenny, if you want to feel a little bit better about Rick and Morty, then go listen to the Harmontown episode that Norman Lear guested on. It is 90 minutes of pure gold. Like you'll be crying halfway through it. It is astonishing. Norman Lear still sharp as a tack. He shows up on stage and has this amazing conversation between two comedy legends. It is extraordinary. Highly, highly recommended.
Okay.
Now, continuing with old people television ideas, David Letterman's my next guest needs no introduction. Will return to Netflix with 6 new episodes, and they're all dropping at once this time, May 31st.
Tom, am I a bad person for deeply loving the 2 episodes of this I watched and then saving the rest? Because I think there was like, 4 or 6 more? I think I watched the one with Barack Obama and one other one, but it's like, it's great. It's really, really good. And it's so good that I couldn't bring myself to gobble up all the rest of them because I feel like there's, in my lifetime, only going to be so much more David Letterman left, and I want to save it. Is that bad?
I would say if you're the kind of person that did that, you're also me, because I did exactly the same thing.
Jenny, what about you?
We watched them all because we were super curious to see sort of Dave liberated from behind the desk bit. And here's where I have to confess that once, very briefly, my husband worked for David Letterman, and it was traumatic, and he never met him. But this show, to me, the one thing about this show, and I love it, we watch it, and the Clooney one I thought was spectacular, really, like, in a way, but I call this the Oprah problem. which is like, once Oprah has a podcast, once Oprah has an interview show, Oprah can get anyone she wants and interview anyone she wants. And Dave can get anyone she wants and he wants and interview anyone he wants. So it's like, at a certain point, when do we reach peak knowing about other people? And the conversations between two famous people about their lives and what gives their lives meaning, like, aren't we going to run out of these sort of mega conversations? I don't know. I sometimes, as a former booker, have this weird fatigue of well, who's bigger than Barack Obama, and hasn't he already talked to everyone?
Well, this is a very relevant question as we get ready to build out a brand new production studio and HQ, and one of the ideas is to make it an appealing place for other tribes to send their best and brightest, for us to do cross promotions and interviews in. So I guess, you know, the likes of Tom Merritt and Brian Brushwood don't have to worry about that question just yet. But even Oprah has a tribe that is very specific and can find somebody outside of that tribe to introduce her tribe to. And so in that regard, David Letterman has a tribe that I would say maybe has a 60% overlap with the Oprah tribe, you know, and as a result, there's probably some fringe folks over on the Oprah side that he could bring in to the David Letterman side that I think the David Letterman audience would be really excited about.
Yeah, I buy that. And also, like, my favorite thing to do is interview people nobody knows about. So I think interviews are alive and strong. I just, you know, and this is more of a, in a weird way, a podcast problem than a TV series problem. But it's like, I'm sure Chef's Table is never going to run out of chefs, right? There's always going to be another chef. But at a certain point, do we get storytelling interview fatigue? And I ask this as someone who produces 7 podcasts.
I mean, look, here's my theory.
I ask you, who produced 700, how you feel about this.
Here's my theory. On a long enough timeline, everyone becomes Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan has figured out how to make it work, so everyone else can as well.
Yeah, I wonder actually if part of this is David Letterman says, I know people like to hear my conversations. My conversations always bring out something that other interviewers don't. So the thing that held me back were time constraints and scheduling. And with Netflix, I don't have time constraints or scheduling constraints. I can just record them when the person is available. No problem. I wonder when he gets to the point, because of something you said, Jenny, where he says, you know, next season should be called Let Me Introduce You to My Next Guest. Mm-hmm. When does he get tired of like, okay, I did the big names to bring people into the tent, the big names that I couldn't always get or spend enough time with on late night or late show. But let me go get back to talking to the people who are just interesting on their own. And you see a little bit of that in some of the segments that he does in My Next Guest Needs No Introduction. So I don't know, maybe he'll flip the script at some point.
That's a really good idea.
3 episodes from Black Mirror are arriving on Netflix June 5th, one of which stars Miley Cyrus.
Hey man, I bet they're great. Next story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got others to say, except my wife was like, I'm taking June 5th off. I get 3 episodes, watching all 3. Yeah. Jenny, anything else to add?
Yes. Look who it is. It's Sherlock Holmes's nemesis.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's exciting. I don't care about Miley Cyrus. I care about that guy who got sort of ill-served by his exit from Sherlock. And if he's in a Black Mirror, I will also be taking June 5th off. He's
been in a bunch of other stuff as well. He's fantastic in anything they throw at him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Netflix's animated fantasy series Disenchantment will return on September 20th. Most of what I felt while I was watching the first half of the series was disenchantment, but it ended in such a way that I am going to watch this. I'm going to dive back in because he made me care about the characters, even though I never really loved the stories. So that's the brilliance of strong characters. Like, all right, maybe the stories will still suck, but I want to see what they do. And maybe that'll be enough. Maybe I'll start to enjoy it anyway.
The exact way you described that is how I felt about the first season of Futurama, and ended up being one of my favorite shows in all of animation. So why not do it again? Also, I only watched the first episode of Disenchantment.
Yeah, I got nothing on this, but I did feel that way about the OA. That was a show where we loved the whole first season of it, except the ending of the first season. And it was so bad, the ending of the first season, we swore we'd never watch it again. But then we were just like, oh, yeah, but these characters were so strong and so amazing that we got sucked back in, and season 2 is fantastic. So it's just like, we're all living in our alternate realities of shows that are pretty good, but not great, and definitely not Game of Thrones. But yeah, sure, why not?
Batwoman trailer is out. We mentioned Batwoman as one of the CW shows. Trailers shows Ruby Rose from Orange is the New Black as Batwoman, coming to CW this autumn.
Man, that whole CW verse, I get the strong impression that the only way I'm going to watch any of these is if my kids get into them. And right now I'm not seeing any of them really, really tempted. But I know you're deeply rooted in all of that turf. Tom, are you excited for this?
I stopped watching these about a year ago.
Oh, no. Jenny?
Great plots, terrible execution, horrible writing. Just can't do it anymore.
Good luck, Batwoman.
HBO's Westworld released a season 3 trailer. It's coming to HBO in 2020, so don't get too excited. But the trailer is pretty much all Aaron Paul, a.k.a. Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad.
Okay. I have thoughts on this because, look, hi, Westworld. Look, I understand we had a lot of fun. We got together a few nights, had some real magic happen, but you kept calling me, and you kept making promises, and you didn't show up. And look, we're 3 years into this, and you're calling me now. And granted, this is the sexiest promise you've ever made. But Westworld, I know who you are, and I'm afraid I'm drawing boundaries right now. And I probably will show up because I have certain needs, but know that in my heart I'm gonna block off because I don't know if I can trust you, Westworld.
Same. Although I'm relieved to know that when Jesse Pinkman drove off in a blaze of glory at the end of Breaking Bad, this is where he ended up in the future. Like I'm pretty pumped for the real world aspect of Westworld because I honestly feel like that second season tapped out all the potential of the fake world and sort of like ruined it and smacked it around and left it sad and broken. And we found that second season very, very frustrating. So anything that shakes the paradigm of Westworld is good for me.
I just thought this is a trailer that wants to promise everything Brian wants from Westworld.
Yes, and also does not believe, because they spent a lot of money on that set for Westworld, and you're not going to look me in the eye and tell me that they're not going to just find a way to figure out. They're going to give us 20 minutes of Tron legacy, and then they're going to be all like, there's only one place we can pull this cyber bullet out.
That entire trailer comes from episode 1. Especially because it's not ready till 2020, right?
There's only one place to remove this cyber bullet, and that's back at Westworld. Let's take her back to the island. It's Lost 2.0.
If anyone forgot, there is a Snowpiercer TV show in the wings. It was supposed to air on TNT, but now that Warner Media is under new management, I guess they feel like TBS doesn't have to be funny all the time. So Snowpiercer is going to show on TBS when it debuts next year, and they've already renewed it for a second season before it even hits air.
I feel like what made Snowpiercer amazing was not so much the story or the visuals, but the incredible direction. And it doesn't sound like this is directed by the same person.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
is Chris Evans involved in any way?
Nope.
All right. Snowpiercer.
It stars Jennifer Connelly, Daveed Diggs, Allison Wright, Mickey Sumner, Susan Park, Ito Goldberg, Katie McGinnis, Lena Hall, Annalise Basso, Sam Otto, Roberto Urbina, Sheila Vann, and Jalen Fletcher. And Rowan Blanchard will be elevated to a series regular for the second season.
There was a first season? I'm so confused.
No, the first season has yet to air, and they've already renewed it for a second season.
Well, good for that guy.
The series creator Josh Friedman left the show in January with Graham Manson taking over as showrunner.
Great sign.
Fox announced a show called Next, which capitalizes the X. See what they did there? It's about an evil voice assistant speaker that wants to take over the world. The speaker is the next technology, but in one situation it's called Eliza, I-L-I-Z-A, like I lies. And it has a blue ring when you talk to it, which might sound familiar to Echo owners. And it's coming soon.
You know what's funny is if you ask your Echo who the richest person in the world is, you get a sentence of who the richest person in the world is, and then an explanation about all the groundbreaking technology that this person has helped develop in the company, how great the company that he owns is.
And now I'm turning off all the lights in your house. And locking the door.
Also, fun fact, all of your favorite podcasters, just casually ask your Echo device, why are they famous? And it will start to read from their Wikipedia things. That was a real weird trip when my kids started doing that, and I heard real answers coming out.
Netflix has ordered a series based on Mark Millar's The Magic Order with James Wan, who worked on Aquaman, and Lindsay Beer, who worked on Chaos Walking, attached as executive producers. Wan will also direct the debut episode, and Beer is going to be the writer-showrunner. The Magic Order was based on designs created by a team at Netflix. So this is a comic book that has come out under Miller World after the acquisition in cooperation with Netflix to make it look really cool once it turns into a show. It is also the highest selling new comic book launch in almost 20 years, according to Deadline. Miller also has a couple other series coming to Netflix: Jupiter's Legacy, American Jesus, and 3 movies, Empress, Huck and Sharky the Bounty Hunter. All were greenlighted last year. So the Magic Order, though, I think is fascinating because it's Miller, but in cooperation with Netflix from the ground up, and apparently has sold really well.
I'll tell you what, man, when you pay top dollar for a treasure trove of stories, doesn't surprise me that that you go to work immediately making sure that that they start making money for you.
Not even just a treasure trove of stories, but a storyteller, because this is a brand new one that wasn't there when you bought the company.
Right.
So my fascinating take on this is a little inside baseball, but what I am enjoying a lot these days is the slightly less impossible movement of IP from like studio to studio, production company to production company. It used to be you wrote a pilot or you did something or you acquired the IP of something, and if you didn't use it, it just stayed locked in a vault forever and it died. And a lot of people became millionaires with stuff that never showed up anywhere. And now things are starting to move across properties. We've talked about several things across this whole show where somebody bought it, somebody didn't want it, and now it's showing up here. And that's actually really hard to free a piece of IP from one company and send it to another. And that hope for me is very profound because a lot of my husband's stuff is locked up in companies and is trying to be freed. And it makes me think that maybe they're finding mechanisms to find the right place to air the right stories.
Yeah, I can certainly empathize. I've had a number of projects that have been entangled with other companies. Luckily, I believe most of them have, some of them have seen airtime, but many of them did not. And boy, there's nothing worse than everything being stuck in limbo. And I remember meeting writers who would casually grin and smile like, oh, I've written 785 screenplays. Like, oh, anything I would have seen? Like, no, none of them has gone to air. And it's like, but they're thrilled because that's old Hollywood, and old Hollywood, a little bit inefficient. New Hollywood, very efficient. If they're going to pay for a thing, they want to see something out of it.
Yep.
Or you do what Netflix did and you just buy the person.
Right,
and you
right.
Say,
you buy the
right
talent.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben Edlin tweeted, "I'm sorry to say Amazon has chosen not to proceed with The Tick. I'm not sorry to say I love this show, its cast, its story, and its message. Destiny demands that my compatriots and I now seek a new home for this series."
Man, I don't feel qualified to even chime in on this. Every iteration of The Tick just didn't quite land with me, but I know people love it very, very deeply. Are either of you two of big Tick fans? No.
I am a big fan of the comic. I was a fan of the TV show in the 90s. I
cartoon?
tried to be a fan of this Amazon series, and it just lost me.
Just didn't land.
Yeah.
Too much competition.
Maybe. It may be it. All right, let's talk about what we got our eyes on, starting with our guest, Jenny. What you been watching these days?
Well, most of my time has been taken up with Game of Thrones, rewatching Game of Thrones, rewatching it again to take notes, and then doing a podcast about Game of Thrones. But I will say that here's an interesting thing. I have been, for probably the 800th time, rewatching The West Wing, which is not a new thing by any stretch of the imagination. But when times are rough, we go to our core necessities. And I bought myself, when I came to New York for this indefinite period of time, a $100 TCL Roku streaming TV. I plugged it in. It found my dad's wireless. And I have since been connected to all of my content, which is sort of like, I don't know, like a Binky at this point, my Roku streaming Binky. And The West Wing has been there. And, you know, some of it holds up, some of it doesn't, but it still is some of the finest writing that has ever graced the screen, big or small. And so even though parts of it are a little cringy these days, I really do still recommend, if you've never seen it, try a couple of episodes and see what happens.
If man, I'm kind of bummed that I'm out of children to make, because if I had a fourth daughter, I would insist that her Binky be named Roku.
Brian, what's your Binky these days?
My Binky is it's kind of the same thing, because one of the nice things about having kids is that you have an excuse to force feed them content that you saw when you were a kid. And in this case, I watched something that I just never got around to ever having seen. And I know a bunch of people are going to be like aghast, like, oh my God, how have you not seen this? But I want to educate my kids about old movies, and my 11-year-old seems to be the most open to it. And I happened to find out that Jaws was on Stars. And for the first time in my entire 44 years of life, I watched the movie Jaws. Spoiler alert, it's great. It's a great movie. It's a great movie to watch with an 11-year-old. It's like there's only 3 moments of gore, and it's not even gore. You just see blood around, and she, 2 of the 3 times, kind of chuckled at how the effects didn't age well. But my goodness, beat for beat storytelling, it was a blast. And it was so much fun to get near the end and press pause and talk to her about the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And, you know, like, hey, remember we saw the refusal of the call, and then we crossed the threshold and we went into a crazy world. And then he met the crazy wizard who, you know, taught him the skills. And now we're at the moment of self-actualization and stuff. It's great. I really, really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I know this is a bold take, but I think you should watch Jaws.
We watch Jaws 3 times a year.
The best part of the whole thing was afterward, Bonnie walked in on the last hour, and I was like, oh man, the weirdest part was how they marketed it. And I hit play on a YouTube video, and it was one of those recuts where they take a movie and try to make a trailer that's the opposite of it. So this is the one, if you search for Must Love Jaws, it looks like a wacky Free Willy kind of buddy flick.
Excellent. I got to see the preview screening that Fandango does. My wife works Fandango, but it's something that people could buy tickets to. It's not a press screening of Rocket Man this weekend, starring Taron Egerton as Elton John, and it was great. If you want a biopic like Bohemian Rhapsody, that's not what you're going to get. Apparently, the studio doesn't want people to call it a musical, but it's a musical. It's basically a musical where the songs are Elton John songs. They are not chronologically presented. Like when he's a child, he's singing songs from the late 70s, but they're appropriate to the situation they're describing about Elton John's life. And I found it really well executed. If you don't like musicals, you're probably not going to like it, but it is a great telling of what it felt like to be Elton John, would be how I would describe it. Not necessarily a blow-by-blow factual account of Elton John's life. And it takes you from his childhood through his rise to fame, his fight with drugs and alcohol, until he got sober in the mid-'80s, and it ends there. So if that sounds fun to you, then I highly recommend it. It's a really good movie.
Literally anything that has people floating off the ground to music is my bag. I'm in.
Yeah, look, that's a great example. Is that in the trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great example of this is not what happened. This is what it felt like to be Elton John. And that scene she's talking about is his first appearance in Los Angeles. And how when he started playing, he started to float off his keyboard and people start floating out in the audience because like he was having the time of his life and everybody was enjoying discovering him and it was like floating on air seeing Elton John. It's that kind of movie. What should we be on the lookout for, Bryce?
Hey, we got a recommendation from Graham. Graham writes, Raising Kratos is a documentary that Sony made, which is available on YouTube about the making of their latest God of War game. So this is the game Sony made, and they've made a full feature-length documentary about what went into the creation of this huge AAA game. Graham continues, this is a well-produced documentary featuring clips and interviews taken from the years-long creation of the game. While a few technical aspects of building the game are explored, the focus is really on the people behind the scenes, the journey that they take, and the toll that it has on their lives, particularly the director Cory Barlog. I no longer consider myself a gamer, but having watched playthroughs of all of the God of War games, it's fascinating to see the decisions that led to the newest game's departure from what made the franchise popular. This is an unexpected find that deserves a shout-out. Thank you, Graham. This almost 2-hour documentary is streaming for free now on youtube.com/PlayStation. This looks really cool.
Yeah, I've heard such amazing things about this game, and especially a lot of people recommended it to me because I dug the hell out of why am I blanking on the name of the movie of the game that I loved so much?
Red Dead?
No, the one where the dude and the little girl.
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us. Thank you. Yes.
Last of Us?
Yeah, correct. It's got a lot of Last of Us elements in there,
Sure.
and I feel bad that I haven't played it. But maybe I should just watch the making of, because I know like when we finished Jaws, that's all Josie wanted to do is watch a documentary on the making of Jaws.
Yeah, there you go. It's on
Well,
YouTube.
folks, if you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
How can people support all of your stuff?
Well, listen, man. Easiest way is go to tommerritt.com and just find stuff that I do. You can buy books. You can support.
I'm lazy. Hey, I don't have time to do all that. I need you to come to me and tell me when you've done a thing. What's the best way to do that?
Okay. Well, then I won't tell you what I was going to tell you, and I'll tell you something different. Free Tom Newsletter is the place to do that. At freetomnewsletter.com. It's an email that comes into your inbox and tells you everything that I'm doing that week. It opens with a little message from me. Some people have been emailing me because you can just respond to the email and have a conversation with me. And some people are suggesting things that I might put in there, like picks or what I've been watching. But it's a great way to keep up with all the things I'm doing, including the thing I was going to tell you about. I'm hosting Justin Robert Young's Politics podcast this week. And if you don't listen to that, you absolutely should.
Oh my
It's
God.
how I keep up on politics. And Justin's gone for vacation for a couple of weeks, and I have the honor of filling in for him. So, folks, politics.com to subscribe, or takepoliticsseriously.com if you want to go straight into Justin's Patreon. But I did my first of the Patreon episodes this morning. I will be doing the first of the public episodes on Wednesday, and then I'll get to do it all over again next week as well. And I'm really, really having a blast. Fill it in for Justin. It's really fun.
I mean, between you, me, and the wall, those are big shoes to fill, man. How are you feeling about it?
It's so much fun. Justin gave me a hall pass by saying, just do the show you would do. Don't try to fill my shoes, because you're right. I don't keep up on this stuff the way he does, right? And he could just pull facts from his head about previous events and all of that. So if you listen to today's Patreon episode, it's just all about international stories that caught my eye, and it's going to be different than maybe it would be if Justin were here. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun to do, and I couldn't be happier to help my friend out, right, and fill in. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you check it out, and I hope if you haven't already subscribed and you check it out because I'm on it, that you stick around, because I think what Justin is doing is really helpful in cutting through the clutter. And I hope I can carry on that torch while he's gone.
1,000,000 times yes. Meanwhile, let's check in on what's happening on the front lines.
Front lines!
All right, so last week we told you that Disney will bring out its next Star Wars film on December 16th, 2022. But after we did that recording, Bob Iger revealed that the movie will be one from David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. Iger didn't say anything else about the movie, including any trilogies or Rian Johnson. Speculate wildly. Go.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yep. Next story.
I mean, honestly, right? Like, it's so far off. Benioff and Weiss have done things that aren't Game of Thrones, so you really, really cannot tell anything about what they're going to do with Star Wars, because Game of Thrones is an entirely different situation where you had half of a story already given to you and then had to try to come up with the other half. This is going to be outside of the Skywalker saga. It's going to be something they are able to create whole cloth. So who knows? You know what? I'm curious.
In the chat room, Darth Van gives me my best favorite shout. He just shouts, "Old Republic!" Knights of the Old Republic would be amazing.
There's only 2 words I ever say when people talk about new Star Wars properties. What are they, Tom Merritt?
Snap Wexley?
No! It's Mara Jade. One day I'm going to ask this question and Tom's going to get it right. If it's on the Old Republic, I ain't getting my wish. But I only want to see Mara Jade. But actually, when I think about it, I kind of don't want to see it from those guys.
Uh-oh.
Maybe not.
Oh, save it for Spoilerin Time.
Amazon said its Fire TV active users have grown from more than 30 million to 34 million. Roku just announced its active users have grown 2 million to 29.1 million. So Fire TV potentially, depending on how you compare these numbers, growing a little faster than Roku right now and has more active users. Amazon says Fire TV is the #1 streaming media platform in the UK, Germany, India, Japan, and the United States.
So we have not yet seen Fire TV integrated into off-the-shelf televisions the way Roku has been able to secure, right?
I want to say that's wrong, but certainly not in nearly as many brands.
Certainly not #1 in the heart of consumers at this point.
Correct.
I think that I have been surprised at Roku's dominance in this sector, given the fact
there
that
are some Toshiba and Best Buy's Insignia brands that have Fire TV built in.
Okay, but I have been surprised that Roku has done so well despite its lack of an ecosystem or back catalog and all that stuff. And it's like it got dominance and is trying to figure out how to monetize everything. Whereas Fire TV, it feels like is going to be like a dominant, unstoppable glacier rolling over everything. Jenny, does that track with you?
Well, Roku is literally the only streaming platform that all 3 of my parents can understand.
Right.
So it is, and it's because they did such a good job with their UX. Their remote is physical and tactical, and it's everywhere. So in every cheap TV that any old parent can afford, it's there, and you can explain it over the phone. And I feel like that to me is their strongest asset. And yeah, I go to it more and more every time I purchase another way to stream things.
AT&T CEO Randall Stevenson says that customers of pay TV operators like Comcast who pay for HBO will get access to the new Warner Media streaming service. A beta of the services is expected in Q4 with a full launch in Q1 of 2020. The Warner Media service is expected to include some advertising, even with subscription fees. In addition, sources told the information that Warner Media may premiere some episodes on the streaming service before they hit cable. Speaking of which, I didn't pay attention to Twitter or anything, but I did notice that, and this is a total side jag, not having anything to do with this story, but I noticed that when stuff releases on HBO Now, you're not restricted on where you could go to it. So I would imagine the moment it showed up on HBO Now, some people jumped to the end in order to be able to shout that kind of stuff on there. It'll be interesting to see if that becomes a bigger effect if the window is not mere hours, but days and weeks and so on.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I mean, obviously, Warner wants to make HBO the centerpiece of its new streaming service and wants to make sure that it can capitalize on people who already get to HBO. So it looks like they have a 2-pronged strategy. One is if you are subscribing to HBO Now, they'd like you to shift over to the streaming service. My guess is they might sell it as an add-on to say, like, you won't have to change your HBO Now login, just pay a little extra and you'll get the streaming service. But they're definitely trying to tell the existing pay cable folks, hey, you won't have to do anything. Just log in. And we'll give you this streaming service, which has some ads that we can make some money off, absolutely free, which is also going to be a nice thing to throw to their cable TV carrier partners to say, we're not trying to pull people off of cable TV. We're just trying to add something to it.
$6,000.
Unless you already have HBO on pay TV, then it's
yes,
no
but
addition.
also, yes, if they fix logins, I'll log in. But I'm really tired of logging in.
CSS Entertainment, that's Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. That's what that CSS stands for. Announced that Crackle, which it just assumed full control over from Sony, took in $11 million in revenue in Q1 and $3.4 million in adjusted earnings. In other words, Crackle is profitable. However, it is possible that some of the costs of Crackle don't show up with the balance sheet, so it could be some creative accounting. CSS Entertainment does believe Crackle revenues will double. Good for them.
Good for you, CSS. Meanwhile, CBS is allegedly looking to buy Stars from Lionsgate. CBS has long touted having only two must-have services, CBS and Showtime, as an advantage in negotiations. Lionsgate has said that it sees Stars as a way to diversify and help launch new programs. Variety's best guess is that the CBS board wants more than just a potential merger with Viacom as a way to grow large enough to compete with Netflix, Amazon, Disney, and the rest. Supposedly could Stars, yeah, thank you. Supposedly could use the money from a sale to boost content production to sell multiple outlets.
Actually, Lionsgate. That should say Lionsgate supposedly could use that money.
Oh, got it. Details emerging.
Acquire Jamie Lannister's butt.
Now, I heard you giggle a little bit, Brian, when you said CBS is touted having only two as must-have services. But that's a serious advantage for CBS. When they come to the table, they're like, look, we don't have a bunch of ESPN 5s that we're going to try to make you take. It's Showtime and it's CBS. You want them? You pay for them. You don't? We walk.
And I think that's why I was chuckling at it, is because I hadn't really thought of the fact that is so clearly an advantage, that simplicity. Like, we just got done in our opening story talking about all the complexities and the thises and that's, and you got to put 5 of these in the whatnots or whatever. It's like, what a novel idea. Just have two brands that you bring to the table.
Yeah, and it does look like CBS and Viacom are eventually somehow going to merge. And so having Stars on top of that helps them compete with that complexity that you're talking about. So maybe they're giving up on that. I don't know.
When I hear CBS and Viacom merge, I just get these like weird shivers and shakes and like a weird deja vu. And I just think of my 1999 CBS stock and I get really upset. And enough, people. Just get a room.
It might make your stock better.
No, it's gone, man. I sold that.
Oh, you don't have it anymore. All right. The new Apple TV app and AirPlay 2 have rolled out to 2019 Samsung smart TVs and actually a couple of 2018 versions. That means Samsung TV owners can buy or rent movies and TV shows from iTunes, as well as subscribe to channels like HBO and Showtime that are offered through the Apple TV app. And when Apple TV Plus shows up later this year, they will appear here as well. And I'm sure it's going to be great.
It's going to be great, Tom. But you know what? Not as great as our dispatches that come from the front.
Steve S. writes in reminding us of how valuable free TV was in the early days of his youth and how pay TV threatened it and how it affects his tolerance for ads today and regarding to Hulu ad-supported versions. He says, I'm less annoyed by these adverts than perhaps the usual watcher, but still, the point is, having grown up in a world where TV was free with ads and pay TV was a looming threat to my freedom. We've talked about those broadcast campaigns warning you about pay TV. He says, I am keenly interested in your discussion where your generation is far less patient with adverts than I am. I'd rather amass more content from a wide array of services than have less capital paying to avoid ads. There's a qualifier. I don't want to watch Drek. I don't like just because it is free. I speak only of things I want to watch when given that choice. So I'd never ever choose a free thing I like less than a paid one. But when the same property is free with ads or paid without, I go free. Meanwhile, Dragavon wrote in and said, to add my mostly anecdotal take on ad-supported services, I hate them. Before YouTube Red came along, I rarely watched most things, no matter how amusing I found them, past 1 or 2 videos in a row on YouTube. The commercials were overpowering and annoying, and I would get frustrated and just leave YouTube for a few days. Since the ad-free version came along, however, I have watched YouTube more than any other streaming service, usually at least a couple of hours a day. I've now watched entire series, often binged that I never watched before because of my annoyance with the constant, intrusive, and often repetitive commercials. If a service has an ad-free option, I almost always will pay the extra for it, and if they don't offer one, I will often skip that service altogether. My friends seem to be split on this, however. About half happily pay to get rid of commercials, also hating them, and the other half love having cheaper options and have no problem dealing with commercials.
Yeah, I'm pretty firmly on the if to me the gravity well threshold. Like if I'm gonna commit to watching a thing, it's like you better reduce all friction once I make that decision. And I'd much rather pay money, including to renting a show multiple times or buying an episode. Even though in general I hate the idea of buying TV. Bryce, where do you stand on that threshold?
I mean, free is a very powerful motivator, especially for people who aren't in that same position to just buy the things that they want or rent the thing,
right.
These things. So like, especially younger kids, children who don't have credit cards, like if you give them free, they'll work with free. I guess that's why the CW app is free.
I mean, I guess that's what's so weird about this particular question is ad supported, but also with a subscription on there. Jenny, does that drive you nuts? The idea of paying money and then still seeing ads?
Yes, CBS Access, it does. All I want in life, I was raised in a generation where you just endured ads. You went to the bathroom, you got some water, it's fine. But all I want are more ads on streaming. Like, just stop showing me the same. Like, I was gonna watch
variety,
the new season,
right?
Yeah, more variety, bigger stock. Like, do you know how many times I heard the new Doctor Who lady say Oberlin? And like in that one teaser that just kept airing and kept airing and kept airing on BBC when we were watching, I don't even remember what. Like it just became a thing. She was saying, "Oh, brilliant," but it sounded like she was saying Oberlin, and it just went on forever. That was the only ad we ever saw, and I was just like a little frustrated. So more ads, I'll watch it.
Meanwhile, Mark from Maryland writes in saying, "Hey, Team Cordkillers, on episode 267, you talked about the new Apple TV update, but you missed a big change on the channels. They play within the TV app, so when you play Game of Thrones, it doesn't launch HBO now, it just plays the show. This is a big improvement over launching the external apps. It means much more improved play and resume frame rate and consistency, etc. The trick is that you have to subscribe within the TV app. It doesn't seem to use existing subscriptions, so I had to cancel HBO Now, then resubscribe to HBO within the TV app to get this to work. Also means I can't use HBO Now anymore, but so what? As should I leave iOS? I could just unsubscribe and resubscribe again. Oh boy, that sounds like work. Anyway, I think you really missed a key update here. It's a big change and a big improvement. Thanks, Mark from Maryland. Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, we mentioned that when we talked about the keynote, but we didn't mention it last week. And what Mark missed and failed to mention here is that this also allows you to download as well. So when you have the app through the channel, not through the app, but through the Apple TV channel, you can download, which means you could download HBO shows, which you can't do through HBO Now, through the app.
Got him.
Byron Cortez says, "Hey, Brian, Tom, Bryce, and Jenny. I wanted to chime in again and just say how much of a fan I am of Spoilerin Time. Going back to the old debate of spoilers versus no spoilers, I am a big fan for spoilers for shows I have not seen. Case in point, Barry. After hearing you guys talk about the show for the last couple of weeks, I finally decided to take the plunge and actually managed to convince my wife to actually watch a new show, dragging her away from her usual repeat viewings of The Office, Parks and Rec, and Psych. Thanks to your commentary, I was able to accurately express what to expect in tone for both the comedic and darker elements. So again, thanks. Might take the plunge into Deadwood now as well. Solo on this one."
Man, this makes me so happy. We live in an age where just hearing other people give both positive and negative takes on things, I don't know, gives you a vicarious, like, it's like overhearing the chatter right before you go into the theater to go pick which movie you're going to go see.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And Corey writes in saying, hello, employees. One of your bosses here. You had a conversation on your last show about what TV series you would like to see rebooted. How about Buck Rogers in the 25th century? I've spent way more hours than I'd like to admit thinking over this over the years. Who would you pick for Buck and Wilma? Kane or Dr. Theopolis? They've already done Battlestar Galactica. I think they should give Buck a chance. Oh my God, what a great idea, Corey. I have no answers for any of that, but that is exactly in the same space. If you could take Battlestar Galactica and make it as good as the turn of the century version was, then by all means, please replicate that formula with Buck Rogers.
Anson Mount as Buck Rogers.
Anson Mount has a lot of things.
Well, yeah. Anson Mount is everything possible that he could play.
I mean,
also Voyagers. I want Voyagers.
Oh my God, Voyagers was so great. I showed my kids Time Bandits recently, and yes, Voyagers is an obvious total ripoff of Time Bandits, but man, was it great. I would love to see that come back again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jennie Josephson, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I hope we pleasantly distracted you.
Yes, thank you. Can you see I'm smiling? Everything's great.
Yay!
This show is medicine.
If folks want to go find out some of the things you're doing, where should they go?
Okay, so I talk about Star Wars. So let's talk about Star Wars. I talk about Thrones, Game of Thrones. We're talking about that. Probably that episode's going to be out real soon. Let's talk about Thrones. But I want to tell you about a little podcast called Talking Feds, which I stumbled into like a little podcast nudnik, which is a bunch of U.S. attorneys talking to each other about certain aspects of the law that may or may not be being followed. And if you'll notice today's title, it's a little Games of Thronesy. But more importantly, we have a segment called Sidebar, in which people explain like complicated legal topics simply. And the person explaining that today is not one, but two, Scott Johnson. Scott Johnson is on Talking Fed, so I have all squared the circle, and you could be expecting your requests to do a sidebar segment coming right up.
Excellent. Where do you find that?
TalkingFeds.com.
Easy enough. TalkingFeds.com. Our website is Cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also carried on diamondclub.tv, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will see you again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
you
name.
just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.